Philadelphia, are you ready?
They said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
Welcome, everybody, to Brotherly Love Wrestling. And this week, the guest on our show, the competitor of this past week's No Excuses H2O event, but not just that, the now #1 contender for the H2O title is Mr. Mitch Vallen. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Yo. What's up, guys? Thank you for having me. I remember talking to you guys a couple of times, and when I got the message, I went, oh, sweet. Hell yeah, I'm going to be on this show.
It's been a long time coming, and as we were talking about before the show, we first noticed you at an HOH, a House of Hardcore, for those that don't know what HOH stands for, House of Hardcore show, not wrestling in the ring, but ringing the damn bell and doing the bell job so much justice. And I wish everybody had this energy when I see people ringing, because usually the bell ringer is just a guy. He's either the guy that's getting set up to get attacked, like getting hit, or he's the guy who just sits there, ring the bell. All right, start it. But not you. You were the ringing the bell, and you were the most animated person outside of the ring.
And one of the most entertaining as well.
Yeah, it could have been like, not for nothing, but it could have been like a drag-on match. But if something were happening, you were just
Okay, so I was a student at the House of Hardcore school, and so I would always go down to Philadelphia, and we would bring the ring down, set it up. My trainers at House of Hardcore, along with Tommy Dreamer, who was one of the trainers, was Hale Collins and Vic Delicious. They were really the guys who really helped me out a lot. At the show, it was HOH 10. Vic Delicious comes up, calls me over, and hands me, I think he hands me like some kind of, I guess like a phone or something that was going to be used for the match, because he goes, you're going to be the timekeeper tonight. And I didn't have a lot of matches under my belt. I was, super new, super young, diehard fan, like I'm sure a lot of people in wrestling go into, at least on the independent scene. And pretty much I still reacted as a fan. So when I was sitting at the table, I just said to myself, okay, I got the best seat in the house. HOH 10, Justin Roberts was announcing. So at the time I'm like, okay, I grew up watching this guy and I'm sitting next to him. And then I just watched the show as a fan. I really should have been like kind of studying and figure out what the guys in the ring were doing, but just, I was so starstruck. I'm just watching. And, the one thing Tommy Dreamer did with the HOH shows is he knew a lot of names who that used to wrestle on TV, big names on the independent circuit. So I got to see stars like, Colt Cabana, Eddie Kingston, who are currently wrestling for AEW. Guys who wrestle in Japan, like Lance Archer, Harry Smith, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Abyss, Rhino, guys who wrestled in ECW. And when, like, let's say like a chop would happen, let's face it, doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna go, oh! when the chop is like, you hear that, you're just gonna go, oh! Or if somebody does a dive, hits the guardrail, I just looked at it, just went. Because, like, legit, they're torpedoing into a metal rail. Just they don't know what's going to happen. You better hope that there's a guy in front of you. Sometimes there's not, and we've seen footage. So just watching everything, and I was just like, oh. And then the worst part is when the wrestlers would go outside of the ring, I wasn't going to run into them because they were going to grab me. So I would sprint. I would freak out, There's a famous picture that weekend of HOH 10 and 11 where Tommy Dreamer's doing a frog splash off the top rope, because that weekend Dean Malenko, who was there live, was being inducted into the Hardcore Hall of Fame, along with the surprise inductee, Eddie Guerrero. So out of tribute to Eddie Guerrero, he gives him the frog splash. But when you see the picture where Tommy's in the air in the frog splash, I'm in the lower right corner with my face like this. And then I have friends of mine like sending me still shots from Twitter feed where people are zooming into my face and taking pictures of it and go in that face. I'm like, what? Because I woke up because I was just like dog tired from the whole weekend. And I was like, what? Just looking. And all these people are apparently talking about my face online. So I loved ringing the bell because it gave me something to do during the shows. So HOH 12, we were in Queens, the Corona Center. It was a Friday. It was the weekend RVD made his debut for HOH. The next night, RVD, Rob Van Dam, wrestled Rhino in the ECW arena, if you guys went to that show. So in Queens, there's a line of people behind the guardrail that saw my facial expressions. They start laughing, and I know why they're laughing, because I've already had the encounter where I've had people tell me the guys who were like after done with their match and are at like their meet and greet table, apparently they were telling me they were watching me because they got like, at least in the Queens building in the Elm Course Center, they had like, they were up on the bleachers where all the wrestlers would just sit and watch the show. So they would see me run around, freak out. During the show, I have in Queens, HOH 12, people like, yeah, Bellboy. Where there was a situation where it was Rhino and Tommy Dreamer versus the Killer Elite Squad. It was like no rules. There was a trash can stuck between the top and middle rope. So like I'm trying to slide in and trying to pull it out, and it's getting stuck. And you know how fans are. They'll be like, oh, you can't do it. Like, come on. So, but people are like, come on, Bellboy. So I'm like, So it finally, I pull it out. Everybody's like, yeah. And they start chanting, Bellboy, Bellboy. I'm sitting there. I'm worried that I'm going to get guys in the back to like yell at me. Like, why are you taking like our like stuff from the show? I'm like, I wasn't trying to. The fans just, that didn't happen. But they were like, ring the bell before the main event happened. So I just like a little ding. Yeah. One more time. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm going to get yelled at. This is bad.
Now remember
this again. And at the end of the show, I get fans chanting, thank you, Bellboy. And then this was the week that Balls Mahoney passed. May he rest in peace. So they played the song beginning of the show and after the show, his song Big Balls by AC/DC. So I started singing along with the fans at the end.
But here's the thing with wrestling fans, though. The smallest things and like some of the minuscule things get over huge. So it doesn't surprise me that you ring the bell and being that animated got over, because beach balls get over, for the love of God.
Oh, yeah. A part of me feels bad sometimes. When you see like the beach ball, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's a distraction, and it's kind of it's a shot at the action going on in the ring for the most part. But you're at least a part of the show. At least you're there. You're supposed to be there. So you being a part of that, it makes sense. The beach ball is brought in by asshole fans.
Right after actually they were okay with what I was doing and they liked it, I go, okay, I don't got to worry now. So that was pretty much like, all right, sounds good. So
you became the interim ring bell.
Yeah. At my time at HOH there, where even the last couple of times, Tommy Dreamer actually gave me a couple of bucks at the end of the show, where I didn't ask, I didn't expect it. He goes, crazy timekeeper. And his hands be like, a couple of...
That was a good Dreamer. You sounded exactly like him.
Before I continue, is profanity allowed on the show?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Only because I'm not going to drop a bunch of F-bombs. Just
look, you're one of the first people to actually ask before just letting it happen and say, "Oh, was I allowed to do that?" So, absolutely, yeah. You can let them go.
I do crazy stuff in the ring, but I like to be respectful sometimes.
Yeah. No, you're good.
We were in Long Island. I just go, oh, you don't have to pay me, Tommy. He looks at me and goes, shut the fuck up. And then just hands me the money.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
You turned it
I just went, okay. Because when you're just a student, like you just listen to the vets. And especially when Tommy's giving you money and he just says, shut the fuck up and take the money. That's when you're like, okay, I'll take the money. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when your wife goes, just like, we're eating here. And if she has like that strong personality, you're like, okay, don't worry. I didn't have a problem with it anyway.
No, I deal with a wife that never knows what she wants to eat. So it's usually, I don't know. What do you want? I never get a strong answer.
I feel like if that ever happens to me, if I ever get married, I'm just go, okay, I'm going to eat this. I'll give you money, but you can decide when you want to eat later, whatever that may be. But I'm going to enjoy this.
That's usually,
That's usually exactly how it goes.
Yep.
I'm going to eat here. You can pick this or eat something else. That's usually how it goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It also helps that I cook. So I'm really the end all be all to what we eat.
The food comes through me.
That's right. So, Mitch, as I said in the beginning, this past weekend, you had a fatal four-way to determine the number one contender. Mm-hmm. And it was Chuck Payne. It was Low Life Louie. It was your tag team partner, Jeff Cannonball, and yourself. And a really, really good match, a controversial finish, to say the least.
That I had no idea. Because I woke up in the ring, everybody was gone. I just see shattered doors, and all the fans are like, "You won!"
Yeah, I mean, it was. They helped you out, and as they were saying on commentary, that they tried to make it seem like, oh well, this was the better option for your opponent instead of Chuck Payne because he is a monster, and so they are basically building it like, well, they think they have a better chance against you.
Well, they're wrong. They're dead wrong. I'm a Hardcore Kingdom winner in H2O. I'm one half of the longest reigning tag team champions with Jeff Cannonball, as well as him and I hold the longest reign of any H2O championship in the company at the current moment. I've proven myself to many people. So for White Trash Forever, WTF is what they're called. If they really think that I'm the easy one, well, they're going to find out December 26th as H2O presents Nightmare After Christmas, because I've been with the company for about a little over 2 years, and I've been working my ass off, and that belt's mine. Everybody, wherever they are, has got to work to be the top dog in the face of whatever company they work for. And for me to do that, I got to win that belt. Because then I'm the face, I'm the man, and I'm the poster boy.
Now, how do you feel about being the underdog or the low man?
I was born the underdog. I was born the underdog my whole life, pretty much. I was never the star athlete in school. I wasn't these crazy 4.0 GPA students in college. I'm not really the most sought out independent talent in the wrestling scene, but I'm here. I got a platform where I got my little canvas I can paint on. It's going to be on IWTV. Let people watch. All I want to do is just, hey, people, just take a quick look. I may not be what you see all the time, but I offer something. You can't eat chicken all the time, you know? Sometimes you got to have sausage and pepper or steak, you know?
What are you
Maybe
in this
somebody
scenario?
doesn't like eat red meat. I'm going to be that piece of steak that you're going to enjoy.
There you go. There you go. Answer that question. So, describe, like you said, the stable WTF, but your opponent, Ron Mathis, who is the current champion. What challenges does he bring when you're going up against him in the ring?
Well, the thing is, Ron Mathis has been wrestling for a while. A lot of people don't know that. He's been doing it for a while, where he's wrestled on the East Coast before. He mainly wrestles out in Ohio. He's got the experience. He's a 3-time H2O champion, despite all the BS ways he's occurred. And yes, he has Bruce Gray and Tyler Vox, who are the other 2 members of WTF. And I guess he's paying referee Nick Papagiorgio, since, Cannonball, Low Life Louie, and myself, we all got screwed out of our championships back in September at WrestleMania, because as Papa G's Count to 3 stops, gives Low Life Louie the middle finger or the double middle finger. And then pretty much apparently he aligns himself with Ron Mathis and WTF. So obviously I got a lot going against me. Papa G wants to be, what was that old ref back in the day? Like not Davy Jones.
Nick Patrick.
Nick Patrick. That was the one. It was the one who helped the Heart Foundation out.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
The thing is, I knew the name until I hit a brain fart now.
That's all right. I hit brain farts.
Danny Davis. I think it was Danny Davis.
Good call.
Yeah. And if I'm wrong, whatever, Wrestling Universe, sue me.
Well, if you're wrong, they might come at you with pitchforks and fire.
Like they do for everything else sometimes. Anywho. Gotcha. Exactly. So Nick Papa Giorgio wants to be one of those two kind of refs now. He's probably getting paid, by WTF. So I got all that.
You can never trust a guy with more than 3 syllables in his last name.
No, not at all. Especially when you see him in the locker room all the time and he's miserable. Hey, what's up, Papa G? Oh,
someone's got to get him laid
anymore. I don't even see him.
Here
Ever since he aligned himself at WTF, I don't want nothing to do with him. I don't care about
if he's always miserable, maybe you can swing the vote back your way. Just bring him a woman, and maybe he'll be a little bit happier. Maybe.
Well, he's married.
Well, bring him a hot dog.
Yeah, I'll tell a fan to do that. He doesn't earn the right to take a hot dog from me. He's got to pay his dues to have me give him a hot dog, because he's kind of cost me championship gold, if you know what I'm saying.
I think I catch you.
So
yeah,
Mitch,
so I got a lot going there.
You said that with your real job, you've been pretty busy and constantly working during the pandemic. Now, are you one to watch what's going on televised wrestling, or do you watch as a fan, or just do you not have time or don't really want to?
It's not that I don't want to. It's just I work at nights. So when wrestling's going on, I'm out, working. Where, don't get me wrong, if I was home, I would watch it. I like keeping up with what's going on. I like to know who's doing what, because there's people I know that have gotten signed. I know certain people that are, work in certain companies, whether it may be WWE or AEW, want to see what they're doing. Because, crazy enough, like being on the independent scene, I still encounter a lot of these people at some point or another. Where then I just want to know if they're doing well, because, if I get along with them, I like them. I want them to do well.
I want to kind of play off where Larry was going. Now, you started as a fan of wrestling, you said, correct? Like
fan, yeah.
As a lot of people. I mean, what era did you grow up watching?
I was lucky enough to be like really young in the Attitude Era, where I do remember seeing like Undertaker Kane face off. I remember Stone Cold Steve Austin, wrestling Vince McMahon in the cage at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. But like I was like 3, 4, 5. I remember, I remember seeing the beer truck come in before WrestleMania 15. Like I do remember seeing that in like very few moments. I remember seeing Val Venus, rub his body. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't like this guy. Because you're a young kid. I didn't know he was a porn star. I didn't know he was a porn star on TV. I just saw a dude come out with a towel, and I'm just like, what's he doing? And then later on, Ruthless Aggression Era, where Brock Lesnar, that class from OVW came through, and then pretty much just till now. I did watch WCW a time or two, because when my brother put it on, he controlled the control TV in the room at the time. Where I was a fan of Sting. I love Sting. He was probably my favorite.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
Yeah, no, see, I was lucky, because some of the students I see at H2O, I ask them, okay, who'd you grow up watching? I forget that they're younger than me. So these are kids that grew up when John Cena was already like WWE champion. And I'm just sitting here going, what?
Damn, I'll be old.
Yeah, I'm only 27, and I'm going, but no, like I watched John Cena from like the regular tights.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember he debuted the Thursday after King of the Ring 2002. I watched it. And I'm just like, these kids grew up when he was already like the top guy. And I'm just going, you guys missed out on so much.
So my question off of that was, now being in the business, how has your fandom, so to speak, changed?
What do you mean?
Like now that you're a part, now that you know the behind the scenes stuff, like you know what goes on in wrestling, like how is that has it affected your fandom at all?
No. I like to think sometimes, like, even if you grew up as like a fan, you kind of get an idea maybe how some people are. I haven't been disappointed. At the end of the day, once you join, it's a job. Yes, I know you have some trainers like, do you want to get a contract or you just want this to be a hobby? At the end of the day, I like to believe all of us still have a job at the end of the day, because we have fans that pay hard-earned money to come watch us, put on tights or t-shirt and shorts. Many guys have different gear these days. And it's just, we're here to entertain, we're here to perform, and they just want to see us either kick ass or get our ass kicked. And then pretty much I had to accept that, being in the business. That's how it is. And I just got to know, listen, maybe sometimes people you grew up watching, I don't know how they are as people. There's a lot of people I grew up watching I haven't gotten a chance to meet, but there's some that I have, and I've been lucky that I've had nothing but good experiences. Can I use an example?
Sure, absolutely.
So Shane Douglas was at the HOH event where it was Joey Mercury versus Tommy Dreamer in the first blood match. Shane Douglas runs out, hits a belly-to-belly on Dreamer. Everybody,
we were there for that.
Save Dreamer. Nick Aldis comes out. Trash is being thrown around. Before the show, Shane Douglas was walking out of the locker room, and I was downstairs, and he was talking about how cold it was. And I go, really? And I guess he was asking me if it always was like that, because he wasn't in the arena for like a while. And then one thing leads to another. He starts telling me stories how hot it was back in the arena when he wrestled Too Cold Scorpio, for the NWA World Championship. I didn't ask him anything. He just started talking. And then I'm listening. I'm asking questions. He's going on. And I'm standing here going, I didn't ask for any advice. And he's just gave me open advice freely, which led to promo advice, where I don't care what anybody says. Shane Douglas was in my opinion, one of the best on the microphone in the 90s. Whenever he grabbed a microphone, you always had to listen. He just had that personality, which helped out a lot. So when he was giving me promo advice, I'm just sitting here going, he was always everybody hated him on TV. If you were watching ECW, he was the franchise. Nobody likes people calling themselves the franchise. So a lot of people booed him. Yeah. But when I got a chance to meet him, I'm like, Shane Douglas, when I didn't just gave me free promo advice and just started telling me stories back in the OG ECW. I'm just like, what? It's little moments like that where it's sometimes it's the guys that you may not see on WrestleMania main events that are actually the coolest people. Because being at HOH, I've met so many guys that have been on WWE television or TNA, now known as Impact, or probably currently there now. And I've personally had a lot of good experiences. Sometimes it's a quick hello, but that's all you really need. I wasn't trying to. I just wanted to say hello and be respectful if I had the opportunity. I wasn't trying to be and ask for their life story, which I'm sure there's probably people that try to do that. But I just, and if I had a chance to become friends with them or got to talk and conversations with them, I was like, all right, that's what's up. So I'm always going to be a fan, even in the business. And after I retire or quit, however people want to call it, I'm still going to be a fan. I was on an ECW binge all day today because, you guys brotherly love HOH and reminds me of ECW. So I was just watching that, I'm always going to be a fan.
So
did that answer it?
Yeah, no, that was good. I do want to a little bit further. Was there, because you've come across so many different guys that you've watched and have been, especially in, like you said, in the arena, have wrestled full time in the arena for the original ECW. Aside from the franchise, obviously, because you said that, were there any guys where, whether you shared the locker room or were just standing there talking, where you had to almost pinch yourself? I cannot believe that this person's taking the time or something like that. other than obviously the franchise?
Does it have to be like at the ECW or
Oh,
like,
no. Anytime.
Anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so early on in my career, I didn't get a lot of bookings. I really didn't have like a lot of connections. Where what happened is unfortunately the HOH school that I went to, it closed down really early, so I didn't really have a place to train for a while. So I started like really being like down on myself because I was really worried because it was like I've been wanting to do this in school, after finishing school. So I was just like, no, like I don't want this to end because at the time I didn't have anything, so I was like scared to death. But I ended up going down to the CZW Wrestling Academy at the time, which is like I would leave my job and it was like 3 hours, including traffic from where I live, just once a week because the 3-hour drive to South Jersey was just too much on my car to handle.
And your patience.
And then what helped is 2016 for me was like the year of the seminar, where I attended a bunch of seminars with a lot of vets that wrestle on TV and have had their name around. Yes, a lot of people have said a lot about this person, but from my personal experience, I've had nothing but good. Sami Callihan, where Sami Callihan hosted the seminar. I asked his questions. I was nervous because I just wanted to ask questions that made sense and that were good. So like I looked like I was like shitting bricks the whole time. So he even had to stop and tell me, like, dude, nobody's gonna hurt you, man. Like, we're all just here, you don't have to feel like nervous or anything. So when I did my practice match, he was actually impressed by it. So the company we were at, he chose guys from the seminar to be on the pre-show match. So I was one of them. And then he remembered my name and everything. And then CZW at the time when I was there, he was booking. So I did a little segment for Night of Infamy 2017 for CZW, and Sammy was the one who actually created the segment for me to get on, which leads to the vet information. After my little segment, Jimmy Jacobs was booked in the same show. I know I've been told by many people that Jimmy Jacobs is very knowledgeable and been around the independent scene for a while. I knew he was right. He was writing for WWE. And I just walked upstairs back to the locker room getting changed. And then he came up to me and was giving me advice when it came to like talking in the mic. I didn't ask him. He just actually was willing to just give me advice. And I'm like, well, I know this guy has a good reputation. I know he's very popular. He didn't have to do that, and he chose to. So that was cool. Ricky Shane Page, who's very big on the indies right now, leader of the faction 440 that we defeated at the last extravaganza. Get some 440. He gave me advice too. So I was just like, these guys didn't have to give me anything. Were they like TV guys? Well, Jimmy Jacobs was a Ring of Honor. Ricky was like an indie guy, but still, I look at like, even if you're like a top indie guy, I still look at them as like, okay, these guys been doing it for a while, a lot of them, and I'm going to listen. And I always, growing up as a kid, I just stayed home all the time. I watched wrestling. So I looked these wrestlers on television as gods. Mm-hmm. Even when I watched independent wrestling through YouTube before I met them, I looked at them as gods. So just to get like any piece of advice, it was just like, they could have been like, oh, don't eat that pepperoni slice. The pepperoni's old. And I'll be like, okay. And I'll be like a stupid analogy, but if that's
it landed, if that makes you feel any better. Like we got it.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of people try and discredit just because they're only on the indies, they never made it to TV or whatnot. They try to discredit their knowledge and that they didn't have what it took to get to the big time, but that's not necessarily the case. Like some people are just indie, like they're just independent. They're just independent wrestlers that aren't going to make it, but doesn't mean they don't have the knowledge of the people that are still. Sometimes they have more knowledge than the people that are up
and
there.
To that point, and a name that you brought up that had been on the show countless times at this point is Vic Delicious. We've had Vic on multiple times. And I always say to Joe after
count on two hands now.
I always say to Joe after we're done is the wealth of knowledge that Vic has and we've talked about on the show is absolutely amazing. And he actually went into this same subject of, well, just because someone hadn't made it to the WWE or hadn't been a star in WWE or anywhere else doesn't mean that they don't have the knowledge that can help other people out who are trying to come up. And Vic, I mean, my jaw drops at the stuff just listening to Vic Delicious talk wrestling, period.
Here's the thing: when Vic comes on, Larry does no talking. He listens the whole time, and he stands on my shoulders, and I have to carry the damn show.
I can't help it. I get fixed. I can't help.
Well, Vic was one of my trainers, like legit. I'm pretty sure he probably still has a lot more that he could tell me all the time.
Yeah.
Pretty much a lot of the training sessions was, he goes, Mitch, get in the ring. And then I would just be in the ring with him. He wouldn't explain anything to me till the very end. And then when he would explain certain things, go, oh, that makes sense. And then this and that. And then you got to remember it, because when you get in the ring with him again, you better know what you learned the first time, so you know what to do next. Where, he's learned from the best. He was in OVW back in 2005. I'm sure he's brought that up, where, he learned from Rip Rogers, who's a legendary trainer. Yes, there's going to be some new age wrestlers and fans are probably saying, old school's dead to him and all that on Twitter, because, everybody has to say something. But at the end of the day, Rip Rogers knows what he's talking about. And what he knows is wrestling. And he trained guys to be able to do a 1 hour match.
Yeah.
How many people today can do a 1 hour match?
It's usually the technicians. It's usually the technical guys that'll go. And I even back in the 90s, I mean, you look at Hart and Michaels, cardio and technical wrestling.
Pretty much. If you look
at storytelling, like people that can tell a story will go an hour. Omega and Okada went an hour because they can tell a story throughout the whole damn match. Like
100%.
That's the only people that'll do it. I mean, if you're gonna have it, because attention spans have dwindled to almost nothing. So if you're gonna have an hour match, you got to be proven, and you got to be able to tell a story throughout the whole thing. There can't be a lull in an hour long match.
Right. Pretty much, to me, a 1 hour match is a country western film. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, like Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Those movies like 3 hours long, but if you actually understand like the storytelling and what they add in each part of the movie, it all segues to that final, like that one big moment. Like I'll use the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for example, where like you see Eli Wallach, Tuco, the Ugly. People are trying to get him, take him in, give him the police for money, have him killed. You got Lee Van Cleef, Angel Eyes. He's the bad guy, where he hunts people down and then pretty much kills people after he paid them just because, he's a scumbag. And then you got Clint Eastwood, who his character doesn't ever even had a name. Pretty much he's like the good, he helps people out, but he still wants to collect money. And then all of them have their own story plots. And then at the end, all three of them finally encounter at the end in that cemetery, where pretty much that whole 3 hour film just built up to like that one big 3-way standoff. And that's what we all were waiting for. But the thing is, like wrestling, like videos, like like apps that you could do like 5-second videos. Everybody's so used to that quick, like, boom, there it is. They don't want to wait anymore because they're just so used to it.
Yeah, for the payoff.
Yeah, we've been spoiled over the years where we were getting the payoff earlier and earlier and earlier, and all we look for now are just surprises. Like we kind of bypass, like, all right, what's going on in front of us, and wait for that thing that's going to happen in the end. But if you actually, and to against the fans' credit, I mean, if they actually sit back and watch some of what's going on in front of them instead of worrying what could happen next, I mean, there is great wrestling that is out there. And there's a lot of wrestling, like, I mean, ROH right now is adapted more of their old style of going into pure wrestling and stuff like that. There's a lot of like really good wrestling that's going on that's outside of just mainstream TV wrestling. It's just that you have to know where to look. And there is a lot of good wrestling that goes on main TV. It's just that negatives seem to outweigh the positives most of the time.
I think a lot of times you get a lot of negative voices that are the loudest, and sometimes, unfortunately, where at the end of the day, the way wrestling is on television, that's like television. So they have to work a certain style. That's what they have to do. And that's what they're going to do. I'm not, I'm not going to knock companies for that's their product. And obviously they have an audience for it. So if that's the audience they're trying to go for, then what they're doing is good. unless they feel they wanted to change. Where to me, there's wrestling for everyone. Obviously, growing up, like I guess getting older and starting to appreciate different things. Like I liked like the old school kind of like slower matches, only because at least how I started to when I was breaking in, I started to ask myself, okay, why do I like this? And then there was like little moments where Wrestle Kingdom 9, Tanahashi and Okada, there was this one moment where they were going, it was towards the end where I think it was right after Tanahashi kicked out of the Rainmaker clothesline. Tanahashi's fighting back, they're going back and forth with forearms. And I just see Tanahashi look at Okada in the face, start yelling at him, like, come on. And then something inside of me clicked. I'm like, that's why. I've always been a fan of like those emotional reactions and moments and the expressions where, like, if I see a guy get slapped in the face, I want them to be like, like I live for like that, like just like the big like body language. Like I just like watching like the emotional attachment, just watching like how like I want to see a guy get hit or the guy like delivering a move and just be like, like just show like that you just put enough force in them. Where I've seen guys where it's just like nothing.
I think you're talking about selling. Sounds like you're a big fan of the art of selling and storytelling.
Well, yeah, because
making believers out of people.
Right.
Like that was always the job, is to make a believer, to have them engage and make you feel what they're feeling, like what you're feeling. Like that's the whole purpose behind it. Not to do something crazy and then just go into the next thing. It's to actually build on it and get the emotions that you're looking for.
That's why I love the Ultimate Warrior so much. May he rest in peace. Yes, a lot of veterans will, when he would do his talking segments, his promos, yes, it wasn't your traditional one where pretty much it was kind of just, he kind of came off like this warrior, like soldier that came from the universe and talked like that the universe guided me here into like, reach like supreme like status as like the top, like greatest warrior and like on this planet. And the heavens had opened up from above, the warriors have spoken. But it's just you could tell that Warrior was in love with his character, was in love with what he was doing, and he had that, it was that pure raw organic energy. And whether you're a kid or an adult, you're like, okay, I don't really know what he's saying sometimes, but when he's pumping his fist in the air saying load the spaceship with the rocket fuel, you're going to start like shaking your head and going to want to start pumping your arms up. Because, dude, I still get fired up. I'll watch or listen to Ultimate Warrior promos on my way down to wrestling shows just to remember why I like this.
I do the same thing with Randy Savage. I'll watch his old promos.
Him too.
I can watch hours on end of Randy Savage just doing promos. And that's what I wish I could get back into today. I wish people like took that time and that effort to really, Warhorse probably one of the closest things to that right now, like at least on the independent, but people that like actually took pride and people that like were so engulfed in who they were on TV that you feel like they lived it. Like you feel like that's them all the time. And partially it probably was, but like that's what I feel like wrestling's missing. That character that makes you fall in love with what they're doing.
I think it's just including I always say it's including myself. I always try to make sure like I try to be me in whatever I do. And I think that's just what the goal for like not just wrestling, but in life. I think if we're all just who we truly are, where I don't need fancy clothes. I don't need to dress up like Ric Flair. I'm not a Rolex guy. I don't wear watches. So if you saw me wearing like a Rolex or something, it'll just look weird. You'll be like, Mitch, that's not you. Yeah, it's expensive and all. Just leave it in its case. Sell it like in 2 or 3 years. Where just Eddie Kingston is the best example I can give right now. Where, he's not like, he doesn't have a lot of flash, but anytime he touches the mic, anytime you see him come out, like, all right, this is who he is. And he's being who he is, not caring. And he's just letting all of Eddie Kingston just flow off of him. And I think that's why people, sit down and listen to what he has to say. Well, I'm a big fan of Eddie Kingston. I was heavily inspired when I first broke in watching his promos.
So for people that don't know, that may not know, you're primarily deathmatch wrestling and into deathmatch wrestling. And
That's not all you do, though.
No, it's not all you do. And that's what I was getting at is when you first started, was that the mindset right away? Did you kind of fall in love with it? And do you want to continue that the rest of your wrestling career? Would you rather go and maybe go a different route with it?
So in the beginning of my career, deathmatch wrestling never came to my mind. It was always, young, I just wanted to be on top. WWE, that was my own, like I want just thought of like regular wrestling. I didn't hate deathmatch wrestling. I wasn't against deathmatch wrestling. I didn't discover deathmatch wrestling till 2013 or I was in college, because I used to look up wrestlers on Wikipedia just to see what their background was. So when John Moxley in WWE at the time, when the Shield occurred, Dean Ambrose, I saw Combat Zone Wrestling on Wikipedia, and I went, oh, it was a cool looking emblem. So I looked up the company, and then I find the first death match I ever watched was John Moxley versus Thumbtack Jack at a Tournament of Death. So I'm like, okay, thumbtacks, barbed wire stuff I've seen on WWE television. Then I've seen the staple gun, dollar bill head. Then he staples a dollar bill to Thumbtack Jack's tongue. And I just went, oh, that's different. That's a little crazy. Before I break it in, there's a board with mouse traps. Thumbtack Jack gets slammed onto a mousetrap board. I'm like, all right. So I guess there's these metal skewers or something that Thumbtack Jack jams in John Moxley's head, grabs a cinder block, and I'm like, because I never saw people do this to themselves. And then I'd see the best of early CZW, light tubes, panes of glass. And I'm just sitting here going, what? Never seen it before. Then as time went on, I started watching it more and more. I was wrestling in Dojo Wars one time, and I ran into veteran wrestler and also done death matches, Masada, after the Dojo Wars, because he was there watching, because I think a couple of the students were on the show. And we were just talking, and I just said, I'm struggling to get bookings and stuff. I really wasn't booked anywhere. And, he was outside smoking a cigarette or something, and he was just like, death matches will get you bookings. And he wasn't pushing me, I was just like, I don't really know. And then, no, he was cool. He wasn't pushing anything. He was just I guess and then Tournament of Death 16, I was doing security there. I got to see the death matches live in person. As time went on, and I thought about more and more. Then one match between Alex Colon and, may he rest in peace, Danny Havoc. I was lucky enough to know Danny Havoc, and I think of him a lot. It's a real shame. He was one of those people in the locker room that you didn't have to talk to him, but the locker room had a much better vibe when he was in there. And after watching that match, it was Danny Havoc's retirement match. A part of me wanted to do it. It wasn't like I wanted to go. I want to be a player. I will do more of them. And so I started just doing it, where I had a hardcore match / death match in 2018 for CZW, Prelude to Violence, the month before Tournament of Death, where I got stapled, got slammed to a barbed wire board. And I was like, I could do this again. And then H2O, when I got booked there, Matt Tremont booked me in the Tremont's Deathmatch Trial Series, where I wrestled Low Life Louie Ramos, and we did some deathmatch stuff. I wrestled Jeff Cannonball in a cinder blocks and carpet strips match, where we used cinder blocks in those thin wooden boards like spikes. I hate them. And then I wrestled Stockade, who was very popular in the New York, Long Island area. Very underrated, really good. And then I won Hardcore Kingdom in 2019. Going back to your question, I want to do more, but is that all I want to do? No. I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not just a regular wrestling fan. I'm not only a deathmatch wrestling fan. I just love wrestling, and being in the business, you enjoy doing certain things. If all right, I might get cut up, but okay, whatever, like, because I guess like it's like that little like, oh man, like I'm doing this. There's no like like way where I can explain to like a regular person walking down the street why I do it. They're not gonna be like, oh, I get it now. No, I run into people during the week after a death match and my head's cut up. They're gonna be like, yo, what happened to your forehead? And then I show the pictures, and then they're like, they're shitting bricks.
No, that's the thing. When people hear and the first thing that comes to mind with H2O is usually hardcore deathmatch style wrestling. But with all of the talent that you got, and being that one thing won't, just being known for one thing won't grow your audience, H2O's kind of adapted, and they're more a little bit of everything now.
That's the goal.
And that's really how you get the most out of your product, and being able to have a little bit of everything on your show. So that gives you the opportunity to not just do death matches. And if you're gonna win a world title, you got to be able to do anything, because as a world champion, you have to be able to work any style.
Right. Just ECW in the 90s, they had their hardcore, but at the end of the day, early days, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, you had your technical wrestling. You had, Paul Heyman brought in Lucha, Psychosis, who went to Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Jr. As time went on, you had your Sabus, you had the guys did the hardcore, Terry Funk, Raven, Tommy Dreamer, obviously. And then later on, you had guys like the FBI, Little Guido, and Super Crazy. You always had a little bit of everything, even in ECW. Obviously, the first thought for ECW for a lot of people is the hardcore. But at the end of the day, ECW was just a little bit of everything. It was guys who you wouldn't normally see like on like TV. It was pretty much, if we compare it to music, it was the alternative music. It wasn't what you were going to find in your top 40 every week. And I like to think, I like to believe H2O, not just because I wrestle there, but you got guys that do regular matches. You got guys that can, work like different styles. Lucky 13. Yes, he's done death matches in the past, but he's a great, great technical wrestler. He could do lucha. He could do technical. He could do it all. We got students in the H2O school that are getting really good at regular wrestling. Like this past week at No Excuses, we had Austin Luke, Dylan McKay, Marcus Mathers, 3 students at the H2O school, and they just regularly wrestled. And
that was a really good match.
H2O, we just, pretty much is, we got storylines, we got keep working, just build and build and build, trying to do what the wrestling is where a lot of us in the locker room grew up watching. Like that's the goal. And we have our fan base that are going along the ride and are enjoying what they're watching. Mm-hmm. And
you're hoping to pick up more on the way. I mean, word of mouth is huge, and this is why we do what we do, hoping to spread that word of mouth just a little bit further. So to get the word out there on H2O, because we know that's where you primarily wrestle right now, and to get the most eyes on you and that product. I mean, because it's if you're going to mold anything after ECW, if they're going to use that as your base, that I know they didn't make it all the way, but it's a really good recipe for success if you're not trying to battle Vince McMahon or now Tony Khan, if that's not your goal. I mean, if your goal is to just continue to put on great wrestling shows, no, you're not going to grow overnight, but you're going to grow regularly and you're going to keep going up.
I'm not going to say about like what happened with ECW since I obviously wasn't there. I wasn't a worker. But if there's one thing I learned is if you want like what you want around you to be good and like build and get better, like just focus on you. Where I know Matt Tremont, obviously the founder, the promoter, he brings the guys in and pretty much, he knows who he's working with and pretty much he has his own vision in mind. And yes, we live in a world where a lot of people get pushed to the moon very fast. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, how many guys have we seen sports, acting, not just wrestling? They have that quick like, and then out of the blue, they go down. Because sometimes it's just there's so much that happens at once where you have no other choice but to sometimes go. let's say if you go down a little bit, some people don't know how to handle that because they're not used to it.
Mhm.
And then they go down more and more. Sometimes some people are mature enough to understand, listen, it's not always going to be like this. But, just right now, H2O is that slow burn where I know the last extravaganza that last month, the 2 shows that weekend, Halloween weekend, that helped out a lot. Where that was, that was a big one. Yes, there was death matches, but we had regular matches.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was the 6th man with Jeff Cannonball, Tony Deppen, and myself against Eric Ryan, Ricky Shane Page, and Gregory Iron. That was a normal 6-man. And then, it's pretty much like, I always try to tell myself, listen, like at the end of the day, it's me and whoever I'm in the ring with, we make the match. It's not what surrounds us.
Yes.
You get the build up that gets them in the doors. You get the match that keeps them in their seat, and then you get the final that keeps them talking afterwards. I mean,
exactly. And that's pretty much H2O's goal. Like, pretty much, like, it's built on angles, storylines, and raw emotion. That's the goal for everybody in that locker room. And that's what, in my opinion, wrestling should be everywhere, because that's what we grew up with. You guys, no offense, are probably older than me. And, so the wrestling you watched, like those guys, like you could feel what they were feeling. And that's what made it special. Yep. When Dusty Rhodes is doing his Hard Times promo and he's saying, like,
we're not that old.
Reach your hand. It's like top 5 promos of all time for anyone. Like, reach out. Like, you're going to be like young and you're going to be like, like you feel it.
Absolutely. And from what we've heard, and you're not the first person to say it, what I've been hearing is that the locker room in H2O is very good. It's full of hungry people that are going to get a shot and going to get a chance to perform. And I mean, that gives you hope, and that's what you want to see. That's what you want to hear from a company and a locker room, that there's a lot of good people that got a really good structure and people that actually want to make things better. And if you put that all together, that's a great recipe for success.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's how every locker room should be. Is it going to? No. But then you could tell how certain companies, the successful ones, you could tell by how the locker room's going to be and how the mood is. I guarantee you, there's like, there's some locker rooms where maybe like you hate someone's guts. But if you're professional enough to do business with them, you can make something magical. How many times have we seen guys that people happen to find out that they hate each other for real, but when they're in the ring, you want to watch it?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes hatred makes for a more unique and what's the word I'm looking for?
Unique.
Organic.
Yeah.
Organic story.
Either that or it's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah. So either way, sometimes like people like watching car crashes. I mean, if you're driving on 95, there's always people turning their head for a car crash.
Yeah, and I hate that. Traffic gets backed up.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like,
95
yes,
is not
we
fun.
get it. The Corvette is smashed. It's totaled. Move forward.
Your vision isn't going to save that car.
Exactly.
Unless you're
unless like, where it's like something where like, body parts are exploded everywhere, where it's something you don't normally see. I hope I really never see that, but it is what it is if I do. And I hope that doesn't happen.
A really
anymore.
dark alley to go around for the first go at it. That was, you could have said maybe like a bumper flew off, but you said body parts.
Well, because I've seen bumpers fly off. Because on I-87, on my way to Manhattan, I'm seeing all these, there's accidents all the time. I've seen cars on fire. I'm like, well, as long as I just hope the people are okay. But people are like, whoa. I'm like, you've never seen a car on fire before? Move forward.
I seen a tractor trailer and people on fire, and you can see it from a distance, and everyone walking down the highway because they're trying to get away from this trailer that's on fire.
Intense.
That's what it's like up in Philly. Just walk the highways, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll make it home in no time.
So, Mitch, we want to thank you so much for taking the time talking with us, and remind everybody, December 26th, Nightmare After Christmas, you going for that world title We can't wait to watch it. We hope it goes your way, and with everything going up against you, we hope that you walk away with the title that night.
Yeah, legit. I will win that title.
Well,
That's what I've been working towards.
Mm-hmm.
You want us in your corner? We'll fuck some people up.
Yeah, go right ahead. But save Papa Giorgio for me.
I'll hold him. I'll put him in the sleeper hold. You can punch him in the stomach.
I would love to.
I'm there if you need me.
All right.
Mitch, thanks so much again for taking the time. It was great having you and talking to you. And we'll be talking to you really soon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.